Alright, hey everybody, this is Mike. I am here with a tutorial for joysticks and sliders to show you how to do an advanced mouth rig. This is a pretty advanced topic, and what I'm going to be doing is basically doing a 3D character facial rig workflow in a 2D on a 2D character. And I'm going to be using some of the principles used in kind of the textbook for 3D character facial rigging called Stop Staring by Jason Osipa. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name right, but it's a great sort of book that is kind of an industry standard for learning how to do facial rigging in 3D software. And here I'm going to use joysticks and sliders to do it in a 2D environment. Let's take a look at this rig that I did a few days ago, testing out this workflow. Its head layer is just got two joysticks. One has got one controlling this head angle and the other one controlling the eyes. And I've got above the eyes a little matte layer that I move around to create the blinking. And within that is a pre-comp for the mouth layer. Mouth layer lives here and is animated here. And it's using a handful of joysticks to control a very detailed mouth rig. What it allows me to do is move the corners in, change the jaw shape, change the lip positions, and basically sculpt my own mouth for every frame and keyframe these joysticks to create a fluid animated mouth. And once I have everything ready, I just click Update Path Shapes, and it bakes all these keyframes and paths to create the mouths that I've just created. I'd also like to announce that I've made a small update to joysticks and sliders that you will need to have upgraded to in order to follow along with this tutorial. It is the same. You won't notice it much except for one feature that I've added, which I think is pretty nice, with path rigging. Currently, in the previous version, if you have a path connected to a slider null and you update path shapes with that slider null selected, it updates correctly. But what we're going to be doing in this tutorial is we're going to be connecting our sliders now to joysticks. And in the previous version, if you had a joystick that wasn't directly connected to a path shape, it would not work. But now, if you have any controller, it will dig into whatever controllers that it might be controlling, and those controllers recursively will look for more controllers or path shapes that may be rigged to it. So this update is going to come in very handy as we are manipulating joysticks, and with those selected, we are going to try to update path shapes without having to go back and select our slider null. So let's start by making a mouth, and this will be a simple square composition. Let's make it 1500 by 1500. Let's change the background color to something that will be easy to see, sort of a light gray with a little blue hue. And let's begin by turning on our grid. This is going to be a very detailed, very precise process. Now let's slap some points down. I'm gonna do the corner, the top left, middle, top right, right corner, and sort of go around the mouth, making the shape. Another thing I should point out is I have Roto Bezier checked. This is going to be very important. We just want to deal with moving points around. If we bog ourselves down with moving Bezier handles around throughout all this, this is going to be a much more tiring process. So I've chosen to use Roto Bezier because it's easier to work with and it more mimics the actual behavior of 3D animated points when you have an auto smoothing on a 3D character. I'm going to line all these points up so they match to very specific points on the stage. Let's put these center guys right here. 2 ticks away, I'll put these guys. And what I'm going to create is a closed mouth, with all these points being very evenly spaced apart. Make sure I have plenty of room to move around while I'm making my keyframes. You'll notice he looks kind of like a Ninja Turtle, the way his mouth is shaped. I'm going to do that by just taking those edges, those corners, and grabbing the Convert Vertex tool, pinch them down until they sort of flatten out. I don't want them to be a completely sharp angle. I'm going to give them a little bit of roundness, but certainly not as round as they were before. Get these guys a little closer together. Now they don't have to actually touch, since I'm going to put a duplicate layer with a stroke on top of this, like my character here has a stroke that is able to make those lips come together, even though they don't actually quite meet. Oops, didn't want to do that. Okay. This is going to be our origin pose. And what I'm going to basically do is make a whole lot of blend shapes. Let me close that down. A whole lot of blend shapes that we're going to blend together with sliders. And then we're going to connect those sliders to joysticks. Let's start with our first. This is our origin. Zoom way in. And I'm going to be putting little layer markers on my shape layer here to help me stay organized. I'll call this open, and this will be my open shape. And I'm being very careful to move points only on the y-axis. Top lip does go down a little bit when you open your mouth, and I'm basically creating an ah shape for this mouth. Make sure it's quite symmetrical. That kind of works. I think it could go bigger. There we go. There we have an open mouth. I'm going to go to the next frame. I'm going to hit on joysticks and sliders, paste origin. I'm going to slip into the sliders panel. Not using it quite yet. I'm still sort of sculpting these keyframes. Now your jaw, you can open it by going open and close, but you can also slide it left and right. So let's do one direction. Let's just go to the right with this guy. I'm going to have these guys distribute a little better as they slide over. That looks about right. And I'll call this side. And if you've seen any of my other tutorials, you'll know that I like to get into rigging as soon as possible. So let's just get this jaw rigged up first. Since I have an origin and two keyframes, this should give me a slider null with two effect sliders. Mouth null, looking in there. There we go. We have our two sliders. Slide them around and nothing happens, but now you hit update path shapes, and that mouth will appropriately slide to the right, slide to the left, open way up, and even you can go negative and have the bottom lip pass through the top lip, which we're not going to want to have happen anyway. But let's zero these out. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tie these slider controllers to a joystick so that we have a nice jaw controller in a joystick. I'm going to rename this first one open, the second one side, and I'm going to start making my keyframes for my sliders. Hit U, this will be my origin. First will be my right, that will be, oh, and one thing I should also point out as I update path shapes here is I'm going to think about the behavior that I want this joystick to have. When the joystick is going to be center, I want the mouth to actually be halfway open. When the joystick is up top, it'll be fully closed. At the bottom, it will be fully open. So for that reason, for its origin, I'm actually going to have it halfway open. And then for the next one, it will remain halfway open and slide all the way to the right, bring that up to 100. Sliders work between negative 100 and 100 in their value. That's something to keep in mind. Go to the next frame, paste origin, and bring that side down to negative 100. See how that looks. And then paste origin here and bring that open down to 0. So that's going to be the very top of the joystick, and that's where we're going to put it to get us a closed mouth. And then here I'm going to do the paste origin into a fully open mouth by hitting 100 here, you see? Very good, very good. Now I think we are ready to rig. So I'm going to go into my joysticks panel and create a joystick and call it jaw. And I'm going to bring this down, scale the origin. You can scale the origin of anything of these joysticks down to save yourself some space. And now you'll see that when I move this joystick around and hit update path shapes, there we go. Hold on, I need to get the door. Sorry about that, I had a friend at the door. Anyhow, I'm back. And yeah, so this jaw actually works if I were to place a position keyframe here and then go over 1 second and move it over here. Updating path shapes, we see we have animation the way that it's supposed to happen. So that's great so far. One thing that would be nice though is, you know, I don't know the shape of what my mouth is going to be before I hit update path shapes. So I'm going to set up some guides that are going to really help us along the way as we move forward. So I'm going to go into my sliders panel and unbind everything from that null, and let's go into shapes and create some very brightly colored circles. Make sure I have nothing selected, so I create a new path shape layer, and I'm going to turn that grid back on. Here we go, so I know where that center is. There we go. Let's make this a hideous color like yellow, and I'm going to call this top lip, and I'm going to key its transform. Let's duplicate this and make a bottom lip, and its transform should be keyed, but now I'll slide it down just a little bit. Oops, you know what? That was not, those were not centered. Let's look at where those, okay, those are right there, center. So I just want to move those over to the actual centers of where those anchor points are. I'm going to zip ahead as I create, and I'm going to keep these all in one shape layer just to save space in my timeline. I'm going to create one of these for every Bezier point on this mouth. I'll probably speed through it pretty quick in the video. All right. And then we now have points for every Bezier point. Now what I am going to do is match those up to every keyframe. This is not all that fun and exciting, but it will be extremely helpful once it's all set up as you animate. So this again, I'm going to probably speed through this in the video because it is a little time consuming, but so is rigging. Okay, now we have that our little locators have tracked along with all the points here. I'm going to select them along with the mouse shape again, reconnect those back to my mouth null, bind them, and now we'll see that when we move our joystick, which lives down here. Let's turn off that grid, show grid, there we go. Now when we move this, I get actually a pretty good estimation on what our mouth is going to look like before I hit update path shapes. This is extremely helpful when you're animating. So moving forward, we'll keep these guys tracking along with our new mouth shapes that we create. Next, we're going to create controls for the left side of the mouse. Let's get going on that. Let's take the mouth null and unbind. In our next empty frame. We're going to take that mouse shape and move everything. Oh, I paste origin so it goes back to its original shape. We're going to take. Let me change the color here so you can see the outline just a little clearer. And I'm going to look at that grid again. I'm going to move these lines. What's going to be very important too is that as I do this, I'm going to do what I do here on the other side later, and I want to make sure that I follow things exactly to make sure that stuff is symmetrical. That's why this grid is so important and helpful. Allows me to create symmetrical shapes on either side. Now that I've moved those guys in, I'm going to go into the locators and bring those guys in and bring that corner guy in. Great. I am not where I'm supposed to be on the timeline. Select all and U. These are supposed to be here. Yep, I don't know how I got over there. And these guys who don't change, they are going to be keyed as well. Now pasting origin, I'm going to create a smile. I should remember to go in here and create my little markers. We're going to go in here and create a smile by pushing these points upward. I'm not being I'm going to bring the middle of the mouth up a little bit because your whole mouth does rise a bit when you smile. I'm being very careful to just move these points on the y-axis. And, okay. I want to also take a note of where those Beziers end up. Let's move our point locators to the right place. Great. I think we've got everything we need to create our next joystick. Selecting, let's see, I guess I can probably select everything here. Oh no, the mouse shape and the point locators. I'm going to bring the point locators down here just so they live next to the other guys. Connect it and bind it. Great, and now when we look at our mouth null, we'll see that we have two more sliders. I'm going to call this Pinch L, Smile L, and you'll see when let's stop showing the grid. When we animate the pinch, the mouth pinches in, smile goes up and down. Now something wrong is happening in that the pinch morph shape was made incorrectly, it looks like. Well, I'm not sure actually. Let's go back here and see what I did wrong here. Open, slide, pinch. You know what? On making the, let's look at the mouse shape, make sure that is looking correct. That does look correct. So I think what I did is I did not correctly paste origin on the point locators before making that blend shape. So I'm going to do that right now. Point locators. Or, you know, I don't need to quite do that. What I can do is get rid of the the bottom lip keyframe. Get rid of the top mid right keyframe and the bottom mid right keyframe. Those are the ones that are incorrect, and with that layer selected and holding Alt, I can paste origin, and that appears to have corrected the situation. Let's rebind it. Update path shapes, so make sure I have my mouth null. Update path shapes. That looks about right. And when I move my sliders here around, goes wide, up and down, and everything is going according to plan. Let's continue. Mouth null, I'm going to connect to a slider to control the slide of the mouth, or the side of the mouth. Let's grab that mouth null, and let's create our extremes. Right there. We're gonna key in the pinch and smile, and set these both at 0, 0, 0, and update path shapes. Now I don't need to continue updating path shapes as I'm setting this in. If I know what the numbers are going to be, I'll just go through and do it quickly. Pinch L, so when I bring the joystick to the right, I want it to pinch all the way, so that'll be 100 on frame 1. Frame 2 on the left, it's going to be down to negative 100, and I got a keyframe for the smile, and then up, it's going to be 100% smile, 100, and we can see that with our dots here. And then paste origin, bring that smile down to a frown for the lowest bit, negative 100. Okay. Jaw. Let us create a new joystick. We'll call it Mouth L. And Mouth L, I'm going to scale it down a bit, move it over to the side, scale a little more down, and start playing with it and see how these guys are interacting with our joystick. And I'm going to take these keys off of here. They're getting in my way right now, and I'm not really getting into animation yet. But hey, it's working as expected, so that's great. I'm going to go ahead and do the right side of the face, but I'm going to stop the recording just because it's the exact same thing on the other side and it's time consuming and boring. Anyhow, so I got the right side all rigged up. And I can create all sorts of different mouth shapes very freely. It's really great so far. I might end up wanting to revisit that that jaw side. Well, that looks pretty good. You know, it's probably okay. Yeah, that's all right. Anyhow, what I'm going to do is now create the lip curl. You'll notice when you talk, and a lot of the sounds that you make involve moving your lips away from your teeth, like the T consonant often has your lips curled up, top lip up, bottom lip down. S is another one of those, and really the lips move independently of the teeth, and the jaw animation really only animates the teeth and the lips that travel along with the jaw. So I'm going to create lip controllers for the top and bottom lip. They're going to be independent, and they're going to be a little bit more complicated, but still pretty fun. And they're going to give our mouth a lot of personality. So here we go. Let's grab that mouth null, sliders, unbind it, and go into the mouse shape. Hit U. Here we've got our open side, pinch L, pinch R, smile R. Those are the new ones that I just made. And let's create a new one called lip up L. Okay, so let's paste origin. So we're back to our original thing. Same with our locators. Zoom in, look at our, and you know, I'm going to bring the transparency of these locators down because they're getting in my way a little bit. I'll lock them up so I don't accidentally select them. And here's what the upper lip thing is going to do. Let me turn my grid back on and just raise that lip to a sneer, and then raise the middle up halfway. Basically, when I do this on the other side, that halfway bit of the center is going to be there, and it will add up to be a full unit raising. So let's just go ahead and create these 4 different blend shapes here. Paste origin, move this guy up, and then this guy halfway again, and this will be lip up R. And all this labeling isn't all that necessary, really, but it really helps keep you from getting confused. So now I need a lip down L. Lip down L. Do the same thing on the other side, halfway there. Paste to origin. I'll call this lip down. Lip down R. Move that down and that halfway. So we got a handful of new guys, and now I'm going to go and move those point locators to their correct little spots so that they follow. It's not going to be a ton of stuff here. But let's... Oh, come on, you. Let's try to do it quickly. I'm using my Cintiq tablet here, which I work a little faster with than a standard mouse, and it's a little more accurate for me. But it might be a little harder to follow because the mouse cursor is probably hopping around the screen and everything. So sorry about that. Okay. Upward sneer, left, mid, top. Here we go. And bring that up just a bit too. And then paste origin. Bring that up. Bring that up. Next, paste origin. Let's bring that left. Bottom, mid, left. Oh, my goodness, it's so confusing. Here we go. And then you stay where you are. And then paste origin. Jeez. Okay, here we go. Move that down. Move that down. Okay, collapse that, select both of these guys, save it, hit U to just make sure I have a nice, okay, I got keyframes on everything, nothing is missing. Reconnect it to that mouth null, and now I'll have a good handful of these guys now. And let's just move these back to kind of neutral positions here. And let's look at our, let me turn off the grid here. Okay, left sneer and both sides up. There we go. So we see what that's going to do. Now, connecting these to joysticks is going to be really tricky. And you know, I never labeled these guys. Pinch R and smile R. Okay. This will be lip up L. This will be lip up R. Lip down L. And then lip down R. Zero all of these out. Go back to frame 0. Zoom in here. And This is going to be really weird and tricky, but here's the concept. When we have our joystick up to the top, we want to have both lip L and lip R up to 100. When we have our joystick to like the upper left, we want lip L to be up and R to be down to 0. This is going to require a diagonally rotated joystick. A joystick that you create and then rotate it 45 degrees to the left. So let's get started. This is a little weird, but let me think. So the right will now become the upper right. And the upper right is going to be lip R up to 100. So I'm going to start, before we go too crazy, I'm going to start with, our origin. Next, the right, which will now be the upper right. This will all make sense when you see it come together, but right now I'm sure it's very confusing. And I'm not keying these guys because they're going to be handled by a separate joystick. Update these, make sure I have keys on both of these. Then the left is going to actually translate to the bottom left. That's going to be the upper lip L going down 100, negative 100. Next, pasting origin. The top will now be the upper left. That will be lip up L up to 100. There we go. And now the bottom will now be the lower right. And that's going to be lip R to negative 100. There we see the dots moving along. Okay. Let's create a joystick. I'll call this upper lip. And here is where the magic happens here. We scale it down to say 50% and rotate it negative 45 degrees. We move this here and move our joystick around and watch what happens. Nothing happens when I move to the right, but when I sneer up, the upper lip sneers up. When I go into the top bit, which was formerly the upper right corner, both sides go up and it goes down. So now I can sort of roll the lip up or down in a very concise controller. So now we got a nice Elvis sneer on our character. And I'm going to do that, speed ahead and do this with the bottom lip. And that is going to conclude the actual rigging of the mouth shape. But we still have to create teeth and a tongue and some lips. I'll try to get through that shortly. But first I'm going to pause and do the bottom lip in a similar fashion. And I'll see you in just a moment. All right, and now we have very precise top and bottom lip controllers, corner of mouth controllers, and jaw controllers to very precisely control the base shape of our mouth. Now we're going to create some teeth and a tongue. They're going to be much easier. Let's take a look at our mouth shape. What I'm going to do is duplicate it and bring it on top. Well, everything else is going to live between these two mouth shapes. This will be mouth matte. And point locators, while I'm here, I'm just going to turn it into a guide layer so it never gets rendered. Mouth matte, I'm going to turn its blending mode to stencil alpha. You might have seen this technique done in the head rigging tutorial. It's very handy. And we're going to use this to isolate, keep the stuff inside the mouth, I'm going to get rid of all these markers. We don't need those anymore. We're done making our blend shapes. What I'm going to do with its path, though, instead of having it be controlled by all of this junk, I'm going to remove the expression on it, unkey it, hit Alt, and pick whip this mouse shaped path. So it will just mirror whatever that base mouse shaped path will be. It's just easier on After Effects to do it that way. And now I'm gonna create some teeth. Teeth are pretty easy to make, at least the way I do them. I just do a little rectangle as a shape layer, and I'm gonna tuck that in between the mouth mat and the mouse shape. Of course, you can't see it now because it's down there, but you know, there it is peeking there. I'm gonna have it be something a little more appealing, like whitish, and create a repeater. There you go. Now your tooth has become teeth. Repeat it as many times as needed. Change the position transformation till it gives you something kind of teethy. How about that with one more copy? There we go. I'll call these top teeth. And what I'm going to do for the bottom teeth is simply duplicate it, move it down. Teeth. And I'm going to unbind the mouth null. Did that? Oh, because I'm still in Joysticks mode. Unbind the mouth null here. Here we have our blend shapes, and I'm just going to make sure that it goes with the jaw correctly. Bottom teeth, let's key our position. Top teeth really are not going to move, you know, they're stuck to your skull. When I do lip sync, I like to anchor the top teeth into position. You know, some animators move the upper teeth up. Once a character opens their mouth, it's purely stylistic. It's not anatomically correct, but I also find it just easier to deal with not animating the top teeth. Let's move the bottom teeth below the top teeth because it seems to make sense. I'm going to turn off the stencil alpha because it's a little distracting. So when the mouth is completely closed, I'm actually going to tuck the bottom teeth up underneath a little bit. Then when it's open, I'm going to move it way down. I'm going to turn that mouth mat back on to stencil alpha so we get a good idea of how this will end up looking. And then remember, this is the slide, the side jaw pose. So I'm going to move, even though you can't see them, I'm going to move the bottom teeth over to the right. Now, pasting origin here, bottom teeth really aren't going to change for any of these other little lip things. I'm a little confused where the top teeth have gone. You know what? Our top teeth, I don't know how they got down there, but they should be up here. Maybe even a little bit higher. All right, let's select our bottom teeth, select our mouth null, bind it. Oh, and of course the other guys that got unbound, we got to rebind those as well. So that includes our mouth shape and our point locators. Let's grab, we can grab, oops, there we go. We can grab any one of our controllers here. Oops, you know what? Oh, I'm confused. I undid that binding. Let's bottom teeth, point locators, bind it back up. go. Update path shapes. I think overall the top teeth are just a little high. I'm gonna bring them down just a bit. And the bottom teeth, they are a little bit low. Moving the jaw down. Neutral lips. Yeah, they're a little bit low. I'm going to just raise them up a little bit overall. Let's unbind. Bottom teeth. Click on position property, and that'll select all the keyframes. Move it up just a bit. Feels about right. I could probably just select all. Find everything with the mouth null. All right, very good. Now let's create a tongue. Tongue is pretty much the same. All I'm going to do is create a shape that represents the tongue. Tuck it behind both of those teeth, make it a tonguey color. Like that. Maybe bring its center part a little higher. There we go, it's nice and centralized. And I'm just gonna parent it to the bottom teeth. What I ended up doing in this animation here is whenever I wanted to animate the tongue, I just animated it. Just animated its position property. While I'm here, I might bring its anchor point to its center like that. But since it's parented to the teeth, which are connected to the whole rig, I really don't have to worry too much about animating the tongue or setting up any rigging for the tongue. And here we go. We have a pretty good functional mouth. All I have to do is create lips now. I can take that mouth mat and duplicate it. And on top of it, change its blending mode to normal, turn off its fill, and give it a stroke of however large I want it to be, and give it a nice blue color. And so now we have a full mouth rig. You can animate any dialogue with this. The actual act of animating this is in itself quite a skill to learn. It will help if you do already have some 3D background, but if not, there's lots of tutorials out there to help you do it. In the end, you would hopefully come up with something like this where you basically are sculpting all your mouth shapes, and it is so much fun to work with a nice mouth rig like this. It's more time consuming than just a bunch of pre-drawn mouth shapes, but it is so much more expressive and just gives you that really high level of quality in your lip sync.